Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm Lisa Tandon. I'm the director in the Career Center. And I want to make this a little more of a discussion. So for our student in the room, can you tell me your name and your year? And we'll just start there.
I'm Sophia Nietzsche. I go by Sophie though, and I'm a sophomore.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here, Sophie. All right. Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to talk about what makes a great internship and the different aspects that go into an internship. But first, we're going to start with what is an internship. And there we go. I'll use the computer to advance the slides. So I took this definition from the Cooperative Education and Internships Association. And it says that an internship is a form of experiential education that integrates knowledge and theory learned in the classroom with practical application and skill development in a professional work setting. I think this is important to look at the definition because it really highlights what's different about an internship than a part-time job. So, Sophie, does anything stand out to you here? I planned this to be very discussion-based, so.
I mean, I guess an internship would be like certainly more like specific to usually your interests than like working in a kitchen part-time.
Sure, so you're thinking about a traditional part-time job, which I certainly had while I was in college working in a restaurant, absolutely, but restaurants weren't my end goal. If restaurants had been my end goal, then and I had gone to culinary school, then I would be applying theory learned in the classroom on the job. But because restaurants weren't my end goal, that was not an internship for me, it was a part-time position. But when you're thinking about what you may do in an internship, it's going to be much more aligned with either a potential career goal and or the classroom learning that's taking place. And the great thing about UNC Asheville being a liberal arts institution is that the learning that happens here is so broad that you can take your classroom learning and use it in many different work settings. So you can be a history major and do an internship in a museum, that's pretty aligned, or you can do an internship in a company learning management skills. But you're going to be applying some of that analytical ability, some of that research, some of that ability to communicate and think about things in a historical context in your role in management, right? So thinking about an internship, the great thing about liberal arts is that you can apply your education in a number of different settings. So what are the components of an internship? So an internship is more defined than working part-time indefinitely, though certainly some of these components pull into part-time positions as well. But when you think about an internship, best practice is to have all of these components defined ahead of time. And so you would have an established duration. Is the internship over a summer? Is the internship over the fall semester, the spring semester? Or are you doing a 4-week solid internship between when you leave after the fall semester and before you start the spring semester? So there are lots of different ways in which you can do an internship, but there is a defined begin and end date. As opposed to most part-time positions, you start them not knowing when you may end. There are specific hours, and we will talk about in a little later about the hours that are required for academic credit, but you will know when you're doing an internship the hours that you're going to be putting in. One thing I will definitely say about hours and internships is the more time that you can spend at an internship site, the more valuable you then become to that site, and the more substantial projects you get to take on. So a lot of students think, oh, I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to fit this into my schedule. And certainly you can fit in an internship for 5 to 10 hours per week if you have that time available, and that's appropriate. But the more time you can spend there, the more substantial the experience is going to be for you. So I always recommend for students to spend as much time as they can at their internship site. There is a defined structure. So internships have a defined structure. You know to whom you report. You know what your regular supervision is going to be. So some of the structure goes in with the next 3 components, which is the learning, the reflection, and the evaluation. but you have a sense of what the projects are going to be that you're going to take on before you begin. So you know what the structure is going to be. You're going to start here, and throughout the internship, you're going to move forward with your tasks in this way. Then there's defined learning. So as opposed to a part-time job where you're going to learn the tasks and execute that job, an internship, we define learning more tied to what you've been learning in the classroom. And a good academic internship includes learning outcomes. So you know when you go in, these are the things that you are going to come out able to do, or able to think, or able to understand. So there is a learning component tied into a strong internship experience. Reflection is a best practice in internships. So having that ability to self-reflect, that time put in to the internship, to think about the task that you're doing and how it relates to your future goals, how it relates to your personality, how it relates to your strengths, where you want to build strengths, where you don't have strengths, or where you already have strengths but you want to grow even greater in those strengths. So having that reflection component is critical to a strong internship. Evaluation is very important, and evaluation is part of supervision, but in an internship for academic credit, evaluation can be more formal. So it depends on if the internship is for credit or not, the way that evaluation takes place, but regardless if for credit or not for credit, evaluation is an important component of growing as a potential employee, a potential professional, and as a student as well. And so an evaluation is a critical part of an internship as well. Compensation is one we get a lot of questions about. And compensation in internships has been historically fraught. There has been a good amount of time where internships were unpaid, which is definitely a way to support the privileged among us who can work for no pay to get ahead in a field. It is the UNC Asheville's Career Center firmly believes in having paid internships available for our students. It is something that we talk with employers about because it is part of making internships fair and equitable so that they can be accessed by any student. However, because of, you'll see here the link to the 7-prong test, that is from the Department of Labor, the Fair Labor Standards Act. If a company or organization is a government entity or a not-for-profit agency, they are not legally required to pay their employees. They're not legally required to pay their interns. They definitely, I think, are legally required to pay their employees, but they're not required to pay their interns or their volunteers in those cases, because those two entities can take on volunteers as well. But if it is a for-profit institution, then the 7-prong test applies. And really what they're looking for is who is the primary beneficiary of the internship. If the company is the primary beneficiary of the internship, of that student's work, then the company is legally obligated to have paid that intern. If the student is the primary beneficiary of that internship, then the company is not legally obligated to have paid that student. And they use the 7-prong test to figure that out. So I'm not going to go into that because I do not have a degree in labor law. So what I do encourage students to do is read about the 7-prong test, know your rights, ask questions, and if you do feel that you have in any way been mistreated or harmed in your internship or were legally required to have pay, then we can talk about what your resources are to start pursuing that. So that said, we are strong advocates of UNC Asheville students receiving fair and equitable pay for the work that they do. So, any questions on the components of an internship? Cool. So why would you do an internship? And I've already popped up some of the reasons why you would go ahead and do an internship. But Sophie, for you, what were some of the reasons that you would think about doing an internship?
I guess mostly for experience. Yeah. In like a specific field. You know, looks good on a resume, especially. Absolutely.
Yeah. So some of the things that I have found in my decade of working with students on internships is that it gives them this wonderful opportunity to try something out before they're, I don't want to say permanently committed, but more committed than an internship, because that internship has an established duration. But when you graduate and you take your first position for salary, you're there kind of indefinitely-ish until you decide you want to leave. And so this gives you a wonderful opportunity to try something on that maybe you had thought of or maybe you weren't sure about, and see if it's a good fit for you. So you get that chance to try it on. You also get the chance to apply the learning that's happening in the classroom. So we learn a lot of things in the classroom that are incredible skills and theories and research, but you don't know how it's used in the real world until you use it in the real world. So once you get out of the classroom and you get the chance to apply all of that, it's really beneficial to see, okay, so I like it in this setting. Do I like it in the setting where I can earn a living using that task or that skill? I'm going to skip the third one because that's the most important one. So we're going to talk about the next three, and then I'm going to come back to meet people in the field. So you get to build the experience, just what you were talking about, Sophie. So building experience and skills and building your resume. I used to have a supervisor who was so annoyed that people were so focused on the resume. And I was like, but what they mean is they're building their experience so that they have something to share and to talk about and to say, I can do this. And so building that resume information, building those skills and experience. Potential for future employment. Absolutely. I have actually on the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about the benefits for future employment that come out of internships. And for faculty who are running internships for academic credit, it's a fabulous way to learn what's happening right now on the ground in the field related to what you're teaching in the classroom. So I've absolutely worked with faculty who've had 5 to 10 years away from industry, and having that experience of having their student work in industry gives them a sense of what's going on right now in the field that they can then bring back and teach in the classroom. So for internships for academic credit, that is a huge benefit for faculty, seeing what's happening right now in the field. Now, I skipped over meet people in the field because to me that is the biggest benefit of an internship, is getting to know real people and building real relationships. Sophie, when you think of applying for jobs, what's the very first way you think of to apply for a job?
I guess talk to people I know.
Oh, that's good. You're unlike your fellow students. That's great. Most students will say they'll go online. So the very first thing that most students think of is to go on the internet and start applying.
Yeah, I've done that a lot over the last few years, and I've probably applied to like at least 30 different positions and online, and I never once got a call back of any kind. Mm-hmm. It was only like going in person to like employment days or through people that I already knew to kind of get like a leg up, I guess, that I ever got like a job.
So that's awesome, and the people watching are going to think you're a plant, because that is exactly what I want students to know, and that's exactly where I was headed with this, is that real people are your biggest, best asset in any job search, in any internship search, in anything that and pretty much in anything we all try to do. Real people are your biggest asset. And going online is a necessary evil. It's absolutely something that we all need to be doing when we're applying, when we're thinking about internships, when we're thinking about jobs. It's important. It's required, essentially. For a lot of positions, you'll talk to the real person and they'll say, yes, I can absolutely connect you with somebody who's hiring there. First, you've got to go on and fill out the online application. So sometimes, usually, that's a part of it. But real people and meeting real people in the field is what's most important. This is actually one reason why I shy away as an internship professional. I shy away from on-campus internships. I think they're strong and I think they're important, But what they don't do usually is connect students with real people working in their field right now. They connect students with solid faculty, solid staff members who are excellent, but they don't get students meeting a variety of people that they couldn't meet already. So when you're out in the field and you're working at a company where you don't know anybody, then you get to meet all of those people. And the great thing about meeting people in an industry is that they know other people in that industry. So when you're tapping into a specific organization and a specific field, you're getting this wonderful connection to unlimited amount of other people in that field. So I often give the example of if somebody wanted to come and work in career centers and they wanted to connect with that, getting to know me or anybody else in my career center or in the UNC Asheville Career Center, they can get connected with people across the country, right? So it's unlimited the number of connections that we could put people in touch with. And the same is true for any office full of professionals. So it's really exciting to me that students have this great opportunity to get out there and not just practice what they're learning and evaluate the potential field, but to meet real life people who can be their champions when they're ready to look for a full-time position. So one of the other things that I want to mention as a benefit of internships is that according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, most employers like to use internships as a way to convert to full-time employees. So they like to use an intern as a test ground for a potential hire. And so what you'll see here is some data from 2014, 2015. It's pretty representative of the current data that's about to come out, which is that employers reported converting, on average, 51.7% of their eligible interns into full-time hires. Now, those are the people that they offered to, and then that person said yes. So they're offering probably to more than that, and those are the number of students who are then turning around and saying, yes, I would like to be a full-time hire here. So an internship is a great way, if you like the field, so if you evaluate it and you decide, yes, this is somewhere I'd like to be, to then receive a potential job offer and start your career. And that comes with potential financial benefits as well. So then you want to think about if you take on a position, if you take on an internship, you'll see here from more information from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. They did a study, and students who, and they've got them defined here as survey takers, but students who took this survey, who completed at least one internship, received a job offer more quickly after graduation, and their starting salary was higher. And it depends on if the internship was paid or unpaid as to the difference in the amount more you make with your first job offer. Am I saying that right? But if your internship is unpaid, the boost when you receive your first job offer is a little bit lower than if your internship had been paid. So paid internships equate to higher first position salaries than unpaid internships. But doing an internship at all equates to a higher first-time salary than not doing an internship. So what we're talking about here is the distance after graduation to a full-time position and the amount of money you'll make in that first full-time position. So an internship has the potential to really set you up after you graduate to be in an excellent financial position, more so than not doing an internship. Absolutely. Are there any questions about this? Okay. So I'm a firm believer in internships. We talk a lot at UNC Asheville about high impact practices, and we have excellent study abroad, we have excellent undergraduate research, and we have excellent internships. What I have seen in my time here is that students don't take advantage of internships at the rate at which I want them to. And so that is going to be something that the Career Center is pushing absolutely over the next several years. So I did want to address academic credit, because sometimes a company will come to us and say, well, we want to offer this internship for academic credit. And that's great. but a company can't award academic credit. So companies and organizations are not degree-granting institutions, and therefore they cannot be the academic credit piece of it. So academic credit can only be offered by a college or a university, and it's subject to the specific rules of that college or university. So UNC Asheville has a policy on internships for academic credit. We do require that the student be enrolled in the course, and it can't be after the internship is completed. So it has to be through the duration of the internship. The student is enrolled in the internship course. A student must complete 105 hours for a 3-credit course. I believe that comes to 35 hours per academic credit, but I don't think we offer anything less than 3 credit hours, so I don't know that it matters how many per academic credit, but that is the case. If we were to ever offer a 2-credit course, we'd want to say, oh, okay, that's 70. So a student has to put in a minimum of 105 hours. And there is an internship agreement. And all of this you'll see at the reference on the bottom. Career.unca.edu/internships is where you will find, we have a very nice 3-page densely packed document PDF on the policy surrounding internships at UNC Asheville. But in reviewing it, these are some of the most important components. Most of our internships at UNC Asheville right now are embedded within majors. And not every major offers an internship for academic credit. And the benefits to academic credit are having that university oversight and connecting faculty with industry. For some students, it's a great way to supplement the credit hours that you need towards graduation. However, in my mind and the view of the Career Center is regardless of if the internship is for academic credit or not for academic credit, we believe in the power of the internship. And so you can do it for academic credit, and that's a huge benefit, and you can do it not for academic credit, and we still believe that there's a really strong benefit there as well. However, we are working on ways that we can standardize and work across the campus on best practices for internships to encourage more students to do internships for academic credit and to bring that experiential learning component into most majors. So we're going to be working on that moving forward. This is one of the beginning things that we're doing, the brown bag lunch. And then we are going to be convening faculty, I believe it's November 7th at 2, to talk about some of the best practices around internships, some of the ways that we can work together across the campus to encourage students to take advantage of more internships for academic credit. Are there questions about the academic credit piece? What I have found is that sometimes academic credit can be confusing. Certainly students do an internship and they know that it was a great experience and then they want to earn that academic credit after the fact. But because of the way institutions are set up, we don't have that available yet. With the co-curricular transcript, we are working on a way that internships that are not for academic credit can be recorded, as well as the strong learning that takes place in an internship not for academic credit in the co-curricular transcript, which will be launched for students in January. So that's a really exciting way to be able to formalize your internship that wasn't for academic credit. All right. So that brings us to, I've totally sold you on internships, and you're totally ready to go and find one. So we want to talk about some of the resources available at UNC Asheville to find your internship. So Handshake, do you all know what Handshake is? Yes. Oh, so many nods. That's fabulous. That means I've done my job. So Handshake, when an employer comes to the Career Center and says, we really want to offer an internship to students, we say, great, put it in Handshake. And then when a student comes to us and says, I really want to find an internship, we say, great, look in Handshake. It's just a wonderful way to bring employers and students together. And so we have a number of employers in Handshake offering internships across the country. So the great thing is we have recently brought in NPR, we've brought in the New York Times, we've brought in some major internship offerings into Handshake. But then we also have some local companies, Bounty and Soul, Citizen Times, AVL Today. So we've got some really great opportunities in Handshake right now for students. Then the Career Center. We are here to connect you. We have a couple of ways in which we do that. One is Internship Expo, which is actually a terrible name, and we're looking to change it. So Internship Expo is not what you think it is. It's not a bunch of people with tables and you walk up and talk to them. Instead, the internship representative stands up on stage, and all of the students are in the audience. The internship rep stands up on stage. They pitch their internship to students. They take about 60 seconds. Actually, not about, they take exactly 60 seconds. We hold up a sign that says, "Stop, get off the stage." And they pitch their internship for 1 minute. And then at the end of the pitches, so it's about 18 pitches typically, about 20 minutes of pitches, they spread out around the room. And then students get to decide who they want to go up and talk to. And it's a great way of empowering students to know a little bit about the company before they go up and talk to somebody and decide who they want to talk to. And certainly you can talk to more than one. And it's fabulous. Every time we do Internship Expo, at least 30 plus students get an internship out of it, which is excellent. So we're having 2 of those this fall. We had to scale back the room because the Humanities Lecture Hall is no longer available. So we're going to be in Ponder. So October 23rd and October 25th for 1 hour in Ponder from noon to 1.
That's where I live.
Oh, well, there you go. You can get there easily. Just come downstairs, grab a cup of coffee, and wander in. Then we have Next Fest, which just happened, where we do bring employers in that fair style. And it's not just employers. What we have found at UNC Asheville that's really important for students is that it's not just businesses. It's nonprofit organizations, it's service opportunities, it's graduate school, because our students are diverse and they're thinking about doing a lot of different types of things when they graduate, and we want to meet that need. And so Next Fest is all about figuring out what's next, and sometimes that's an internship, and sometimes that's a part-time job, and sometimes that's a full-time position or service or graduate school. And so that's what Next Fest is all about. We just held that, I'm gonna say it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was fabulous. We had 80 different organizations in the room, and over 150 students came and found their next. Then in the Career Center, we also do direct introductions. So if in the Career Center you come in and you say, I really wanna work in local government, then what we will do is say, wonderful, let's put together how you want to introduce yourself. Let's put together your resume, and let's think about your strengths and how you want to talk about yourself. Now we will identify several alumni and or connections we have within the Career Center, and you let us know which of these folks you would like to be directly introduced to. And then we will put you in direct connection with somebody who does what you want to do. Not to find a job, they may or may not be hiring, but to find more information, to find out what it's like to work there, to maybe ask for a shadowing experience, or to ask them, hey, do you know of any internships that are happening right now in this area? Or what advice do you have for someone like me who's getting started? We want to facilitate those direct introductions, but we're going to prepare you first because we know that can be an anxiety-inducing proposition to have to all of a sudden meet somebody who does what you want to do. It's very exciting, but it's also like, oh, what am I going to say? We're going to work with you on that. And so those are some of the ways in which we can help find internships. But you also have a lot of resources available to you. You have faculty who care deeply about you and who know what other students like you have gone on to do. So faculty can be a great way to reach out to alumni that we maybe haven't heard from yet. And alumni are the next piece on there. So anytime alumni come back to campus, there are ways in which that you can get to know them, get to talk to them. But also we're happy to help connect you with alumni as well. And LinkedIn is a wonderful way to source alumni from your institution, from UNC Asheville, but also from your major, or maybe who weren't in your major but are doing something of interest to you. Your fellow students. So if your friend got a really cool internship, you can ask her how she did it. And you can ask them for advice, and you can ask them for connection. You can say, oh, your internship looks so cool. Could I meet your supervisor? And you can meet that person. Family, certainly. And what's interesting about family is you never know who the people in your family know. So I've got cousins across the US, and I like them all. They're wonderful. And I could ask any of them. I have no idea who they know. They probably know lots of people. But if I wanted to tap into them and say, you know, this is a field I'm interested in going into, do you know of anybody that I could talk to about it? I would likely be very surprised at the number of connections that could potentially be made. And so never being shy about asking the people who care about you and who support you for information and for help. Asking for help is one of the best things you can do, not just for internships, but for your career, for life. Yeah. And then, of course, your friends. So your friends, your fellow students, your family, anybody that you know could be somebody who knows somebody. So we're all connected, but sometimes we don't know how we're connected. And that's one of the most important ways to find what you're looking for, which you already know, Sophie, because you know that real people are the power. So that's exciting. Are there other questions about how to find an internship? I will say that the Career Center also sends out a newsletter monthly that includes some hot internships, some exciting internships. And so those are being sent to all students based on major and interest area. So that's another resource that's available. All right. So you've found a potential internship and you want to decide if this is the right internship for you. So the most important thing that I like to do to empower students in this process is to let you know that just because you found something doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because you're interviewing for something doesn't mean you have to say yes if it's offered. So it's important that you go in evaluating and saying, is this the right fit for me? Because there are lots of internships that exist. There are formal internships that have already defined all of those components we talked about in the beginning. But then there are internships that are created on the fly because you're talking to somebody and they say, we'd love to have an intern. Why don't you just come on? And then the internship gets created for you. I know several folks for whom that's happened. And in either case, what you want to do is be evaluating, is this going to be a substantial quality experience? And so what percentage of the work is on site? We've seen lately more and more virtual work, and there's nothing wrong with virtual work. Virtual work is important, and it happens in a number of different fields and different settings. What I shy away from with virtual work is you're missing out on that human connection and that human supervision and that growth that happens when you're working with other people. And so in the Career Center, we recommend for internships at least 51% of the internship be on-site working with people in the field. That's not always possible, but it is a goal, and it's something that we want students to be looking for, is that in-person work. Now, that may be that you do that for your internship, and then once you get into the field, I have several friends who are software engineers, they do all of their work remotely. And that may be where your career goes, but initially getting to know people and working with them and having somebody beside you that you can say, hey, I'm doing this thing, can you help me? That's a really powerful tool in your growth. So we want you to have that opportunity. So what percentage of the work is on site? How many people are employed by the company? Are you looking at working one-on-one with one other person? Is it that small? Or are you looking at a larger institution or a larger organization? And that's just for your own knowledge and to get to know where you want to be. We do encourage you to look for organizations where it's more than just one person. That doesn't mean you wouldn't have a quality experience with just one person, but the more people that you can meet, the better. So if you take on an internship that is a one-person business, we encourage you to ask that person for connections so that you're meeting other people in the field. The next part is really key for an internship. This part, if the answer is no, then it's not really an internship. So does the supervisor know more about what the student is doing than the student does? If the answer is no, the supervisor doesn't know more about what the student is doing, then what's happening there is the student is providing the expertise, and it's really a part-time job because there's not growth or learning taking place. Instead, the student is the one doing the teaching or providing the service. So the supervisor needs to know more about what the student is doing than the student does in order for there to be growth and learning happening. So that's a really important component of an internship. The next part is also key for growth. Is there a solid plan for supervision, for evaluation of the student's work, and for growth and feedback? So do you know how you're going to be evaluated, when you're going to be evaluated? And that's actually good for any job. Nobody wants to hear critique willy-nilly. You want to know how you're being evaluated, and you want to know how you're achieving your goals. If it's not defined up front, then you're just working and you don't know if you're reaching you don't know if you're meeting expectations. You don't know if you're going where you're supposed to be going. So it's important to have a solid plan for supervision, a solid plan for the work, and solid goals so that you know if you're meeting them or not. And clarity is really important there. So how will you know if you've achieved that learning outcome? How will you know if you've completed that task appropriately? So that clarity is really important. And then how many hours will the student work? So you'll work that out with the company or organization. One concern I hear a lot from students is, are they going to be flexible with me? Because I have class, I have a part-time job, I have a family, I have other things, or club commitments or organizational commitments, right? And so what we have found is that most employers who are looking for an intern absolutely understand that, and they're ready to work around your schedule. And if they need somebody at specific times, they'll let you know, and you can always ask that in the interview. What are the hour expectations, and do you need me to be here at specific times, so that way you can figure out if it will align with your schedule? What are the opportunities to network? So does this internship offer you opportunities to meet other people, to make those real life connections? Are the expectations of student work reasonable? Right? If they say they need you to build a full website with graphics, animation, and interactivity within 36 hours, that may not be a reasonable expectation. So knowing what those expectations are and knowing that you can meet them. And this one is really important for students to consider. Is the compensation at market rate for this type of internship? So there are certain types of internships that are just historically unpaid. And so if you get an unpaid internship in that field, then you just know that that's kind of how they've always done things. But if you're looking at a field that is historically paid and historically paid well, and they're offering an unpaid internship, that should raise some alarm bells. So know what typically happens in this field, what compensation is like for this type of position. And the Career Center can help you with that, but also looking at several of that type of position in Handshake and in online and other job search sites is really telling. So if you're looking at an engineering internship and they're not going to pay you, you need to pay a lot of attention to that, because typically, historically, engineering internships are paid and they're paid well. But if you're looking for a journalism internship and they're not going to pay you, that's a little more common. So that's not that unusual. So making sure that they're not taking advantage of your work. I think that's really important. Are there other questions you could think of that you would want to know if this internship is going to be a good quality experience? Other questions you might ask? No? Okay. So these are some of the things to ask and to think about. So this is actually my wrap-up slide, other than the questions part. But the Career Center is here to support students in finding internships. So we're here to help you find the internship, and we're here to help you compete for the internship. So some internships are absolutely competitive, and it's exciting. And we're here to help you think about, what are your strengths? How do you want to articulate those strengths? What are the skills that you've gained from your liberal arts degree and your work in the classroom? What are the ways that you want to talk about that? How are you going to communicate this to an employer? That's what we're here to help with. So we can help you with your resume, with your cover letter, with any other parts, components to what they may be asking for an internship. Sometimes there's a portfolio aspect. So we're here to help you do that. We're also here, like I said, to help you find it, and we went over the slide for finding it. And then for faculty, we're here to help you track your internship. We have a new resource in Handshake called Experiences, and we're going to be talking more with faculty about that throughout the semester. But we can also work with faculty on finding potential internship sites, explaining internships to people who get in touch. So sometimes somebody calls up and they say, I just really need a student to do this work for me. I'd love an intern. Well, we're here to help you have that conversation, to help you talk with that person about what does it mean to have an intern, or are you really looking for a part-time position? So we're here to have that conversation. And documents for internships. So if you go to career.unca.edu/internships, you'll find a number of the documents that UNC Asheville has as part of policy for internships for academic credit. And so we have all of those there. And the Career Center here is here to offer support for evaluating internships as well, and reporting any issues that arise. So sometimes on an internship, you may run into something and you're not sure how to handle it. Sometimes that rises to the level of a complaint, and we're here to help you process that and get through it if it needs to be reported through UNC Asheville, through Title IX, or another place. We can work with you on that. But even if it's just a small issue, an interpersonal issue, and you're just not quite sure how to handle it, the Career Center is here to help with that as well. We can absolutely sit down and talk with you about, okay, so this is what you're experiencing, how might you navigate that, and how might we as the university provide support for you in that situation, whether that's formal support or informal coaching support. So we're here for any issues that may arise on an internship as well. All right. So that's the end of my prepared remarks. So are there any questions about internships and what makes an internship great?
I mean, you kind of already answered most of any of the questions I had. So.
Oh, cool. Well, good. That's awesome. Thanks for being here. All right. Well, then that's what I have for today.